assume it's the traffic in Bangalore, even though I thought it was not that bad today, but it's Saturday, right? So it's a little different. Okay, so, oh, take this one out. I don't like microphones, I really don't. Okay, so everybody, at least here in the front row, I saw has made a little summary, right? So in a second, I will ask you to actually discuss your summaries among each other and maybe come up with a, no, first question, everybody has a boss in this group or her group? An initial one? Please don't take that too serious, right? So what we do is we actually switch it a little bit. Let me also introduce my son, Daniel. He was 1 year in Australia. He's not allowed to play around with his cell phone. So if you see him play with his cell phone, you slap him. And I will assign him to a group later on. So he will be part of one of your groups. Maybe you just go to the group behind you. There's only 4 people, right? Oh, you belong to this big, so it's a big group, right? So maybe you go to the group in the back. They seem to be a little lonely. Right? You're only 4? Is that true? What is wrong with your group? All the other groups seem to be somewhat complete, right? Okay. So Danny will be here maybe a couple of other days as well. So squeeze him out. He was in Australia 1 year, and now he's going back to Germany. So are we having some light? Okay, fine. So what I first do is I will give you a little review on how I saw it. Please do not get influenced by it. Do your own review. Your own review is more important to me than my own review. And what I did also is I put up the problems and solution proposals on the back. I promised to actually sort them, but I did not really sort them because it was too complicated, because sometimes you had like 4 or 5 on one sheet, so I did not know how to sort it. So what I did is I made a little summary on my own and put down what I thought were the highlights, okay? Now, very interesting, some of you have very concrete, definite ideas. I remember one was writing down, we need to have some imaging for Eustachian tube. You don't have to say what that is, it doesn't really matter at the moment. I don't even know why, but that would be a good thing. If somebody has a really good solution for that, would be cool. I saw a lot on the solution side that you believe very heavily in apps. I would completely, totally agree with you. And I think the solution actually for the future is actually in the software, not in the hardware. Obviously, you also need sensors for that. But there's so many opportunities you can do, and you can also solve, with these type of things, you can solve a lot of problems that you have identified on the problem area, which is, at least I think that was the majority. A lot of you said rural area problems. Combined with like there's no emergency, so if you're really have a problem in a rural area, you probably die because nobody will ever get to you. You said there was a somewhat of an education issue with medical doctors. I'm a little confused about this one because I know that Indians produce an enormous amount of medical doctors. And also know that a lot of it's kind of like an export success of India, exporting medical doctors. So the question is, does that drain your own medical doctors because you export them? I know in Germany we have quite a bit of Indian medical doctors. And so that's probably is an issue you need to discuss. The question to me, but hopefully we'll be able to answer that when we have talked about the future, about exponential medicine. Do we actually need doctors in the future? I mean, I'm talking future about 30, 40, 50 years from now. Oh, here we go. Thank you very much. So those are kind of like the things I saw. Those are initial ones. I did not expect that there would be too much detailed things coming out, but we are still in the search process right now. So day 2. Please remember this. Do we have the sheets printed? So anytime you find something, please write it down. You will get some of these sheets. Basically what it says over here is no, does not work. Okay, the first one is the presenters who basically put down your name. Why? Because first of all, you should get credit if you have a good idea. Secondly, you should be the one who actually presents the topic to your group if it's chosen as a follow-up tool. Then you should, I can not even read it right now, you should explain it in the blue field. You should just put down roughly, maybe in drawings, or maybe in bullet points, what you feel, what you mean by it. Then also the next one, the second line, or the second line from the bottom would be, who actually benefits from the whole thing? Now, going back to the Eustachian tube, I don't want to make fun of that, but who benefits from it? Well, somebody who has Eustachian tube problems, right? But who benefits besides that? Think about it. Not only technological solutions, these are the least of our problems. The problem is, how can we actually fix the major problems? So I said that many times yesterday, and I will repeat it today. The solution is only as good as the problem definition. If you don't define the problem well, and you have not recognized the problem well, and you have not you cannot foresee what will happen, you will not be able to provide a decent solution for it. So problem definition, problem description is significantly more important than the solution. Now you may all disagree with that at the moment because you're from engineering and engineers believe we'll fix something and we create something. But again, if we don't have the problem well defined, we'll have some device at the end of the day that nobody will need, nobody will use, nobody will purchase. Which means you have invested 1 year, 2 years, 3 years of your time for nothing. Okay, so you'll get some of those. It is not essential yet that we do something today, but I always I throw this in every once in a while and just remind you that you still have to do that. I would expect one from each of you at least. So we are 50 people, 50. I prefer to have 75 or 100. So the more ideas you have, the better. There's a saying, and I think I'll talk about this sometimes later, it's not always good to have a good idea. It's much better to have many ideas. Because many ideas allow you to go back and say, okay, that was not so good after all. Let me go to the next one. So when I send my engineers out to inspect a surgery, I'll actually demand that they come back with 10 innovation ideas at least. It's very challenging. You go there and you basically have no idea and you should come back with 10 ideas. It is actually not that difficult after all. So do not fix yourself too early on one idea. Keep a lot of things open, keep options open. Okay, so 1 or 2. It's greater 2, so it would be 3, but I'm generous. I'll do 1 or 2, right? And I'll put up a board, maybe one of the walls, where we just put them up. And it will be put up because we will do some voting on it later on. So please provide the details on this one as easy as possible. Do not expect that anybody knows details here, right? And you want to provide excitement, future options. What could happen if I have that in 5 years? Okay, we'll do this in a second. So little review. I think that's where we started off, right? How many are creative in this room? Everyone, right? Everyone is creative, and everybody should think they're creative. And so, at least this is really almost the key essential of this lecture, is that to be creative, you need to go out, and everybody can be creative. And please create something, and don't necessarily think about working for Siemens, General Electric, or Philips. Because creating something at these companies is significantly more difficult than creating it in smaller companies. I'm not trying to talk you out of going to these companies either. It's a good starting point, you learn a lot, but normally it's not the most fulfilling place in the world. Okay. Healthcare, we don't necessarily go through this again, but I think healthcare is one of the prime aspects of future research and future engagement because it affects us all. We all want to get old, we all want to stay healthy, we all have major economic problems, and I'll show some charts on this in a second, major economic problems with healthcare. And when you drive through Bangalore and you come from Germany, you see private hospital here, private hospital there, private healthcare facility here, there's an MRI center right there. It seems to me very uncoordinated and very much oriented on how can I attract customers to come to me so I can make money with them. That's a little bit the impression. I'm not really familiar with the Indian healthcare system. I don't really know exactly how it goes. But to me, it lacks a little bit of a coordination effort between, and I think that was also put up on your chart, between complete checkups, early prevention, early diagnosis, proper treatment, proper rehabilitation. I think there was two of you who said, put down, rehabilitation is an issue. I would fully agree. What does it help you if you get surgery done and then people leave you alone? You know, particularly if you have orthopedic problems, hip problems, that's a major problem. Okay, I believe, however, that medical technology, especially also the things you mentioned as solutions, apps, software, AI, robotics, synthetic biology, some other issues we'll discuss, they will probably be significant in helping us overcome these problems in the future. We did a little bit of innovation, right? What is innovation? Please remember that. So it is, an idea is just an invention, and if you cannot produce a path to commercialization, it will always remain an invention. It will never become an innovation. And there's plenty of those out there. And if you actually try to develop something without checking the problem and without checking on whether there is somebody who really wants it, then it's only an invention. It may be a tangible invention which you can touch, but it's not an invention that anybody will use. Okay, already mentioned that. So major problems if you really look at why things fail, why things are not successful, that is not really counting only medical equipment, healthcare related things. Anything you do, my son wants to become a beer brewer, so the same thing goes for beer brewing. You really do not think enough and well enough about who's your actual customer. So if you create some kind of weird beer or alcoholic beverage that you like but nobody else likes, then you will be the only one who buys it, right? Nobody else. So it's not really successful. It's an invention, but it's not an innovation. Okay, financial problems. You should definitely know something about finances. You don't know your customer segment. I typically have, are you a little bit familiar with MRIs? Okay, so who buys an MRI in a hospital? The management. So would the management buy the MRI without asking the radiologist? So the radiologist is a customer too, isn't he? And would the radiologist buy the MRI or the hospital administrator without asking the technical staff on whether we can actually install this dumb MRI? Do you understand? We already had, when I asked you who is the customer for an MRI, the answer was manager. No. It's a bunch of people who are involved. And the manager would never buy an MRI. He's the one who puts a signature on it. But what the hell does he know about an MRI? Except for there's images coming out of it. Nothing. So he'll ask the technical people. He'll ask the radiologists. He may even ask the nurses. There's a lot of people involved. And if you are as somebody who wants to sell something only addresses the manager, you will never be successful. Because you don't understand your customer. And of course, what is a very important thing today, and that's something they should teach you in university too, is how do you actually communicate your ideas, your value propositions. I have one coming up in a second where I show you a really cool tool of how to do this. It's called an elevator pitch. And anybody ever heard of an elevator pitch? You have a rough idea what it was?
It's like you get a minimum time, and you're supposed to convince a buyer of
whatever, right? Yes, exactly. In the short time, that's why it's called elevator pitch. Do you remember these elevators? I don't know if you ever had them in India, which were going continuously around. They run up and down, up and down, up and down. So you basically don't push a button, just jump in. And when you are at the place where you want to go, you jump back out. And the elevator pitch is not allowed in Germany anymore. You said they're too dangerous. But the idea is you see a very important person in this elevator and you say, I'm going to jump in right now with him or her. And I'm going to try to convince him or her in that time that we spent together in the elevator that I have the coolest idea in the world. But how many of you are writing a thesis right now? Or have written a thesis recently? Come on. So in the back there was one. Could you describe your thesis in 20 seconds?
to make a summary out of it, not go through. I'm just getting to right now.
Okay, but what I'm trying to get to you is, if I'm asking you, and I would say that if we have 50 people here, 49 will not have a clue what you're doing. And you will actually tell us probably something that after the 22nd we still don't know what you're doing. It's not because of you, it's because it's technical and it's cool, right? And you try to make it complicated. And people don't get it. And what you need to do is you need to actually focus on the key aspects, on what we call value propositions. We'll go to this, so we'll hopefully learn how to do it. You need to focus on the key aspects. And this is very important, and people who are better at selling these things are better at being successful. So we went over this pretty quickly. Sorry, is that the quality? Can we not make this a little better? No? No, this is it, right? Okay, whatever. So good ideas, they're not typically recognizable. So whenever your idea is there, what do you need to do? You need to check on whether the idea is good. Test the market. Test, ask people, go around. Don't sit down and work on it for 2 years and then find out it's a stupid idea. Try to test it early. Because if you test it early and you find out it's not good, what are you going to do with it? You throw it away. You take the next one. Remember what I said before? Have many ideas. And what do you do then? You go back to the other idea you have and check that one. I think I give you this one saying is, do not necessarily always follow the first idea you have, but eliminate the ideas that are on your way. Try to test them whether they're good or not, and then kick them out. Okay, Steve Jobs, late chief Steve Jobs. He was so cool. I think we made this little exercise over here. I was asking you about, doctor, right, what do you want? And some of you don't know what they want. Some of you know what they want. So how is the new iPhone supposed to look like? The new one, the generation 12. What would you like in a new iPhone in 12?
I don't know, it's already out there.
So you have no idea, right? Okay, but some of you may have an idea. And what marketing departments very often do, they ask people, what do they want? And then what Steve Jobs said, that was pretty cool. When I actually ask people what they want and I actually build it, they want something else. Because they really don't know what they want. They cannot really communicate. We have just seen this right here. You cannot really communicate what you want. So it's much better in certain areas to really try to find out what people are saying you by not saying. So you, for example, maybe you would have an iPhone which can read your mind rather than speaking. So these are the kind of things you need to figure out as somebody who is in the product development. Asking people will give you a result, but it may not be a good result because people are changing their minds all the time. And actually look in your wardrobe and look at the clothes. What kind of clothes did you wear 5 years ago? Do you still wear them? You changed your mind. Why did you change your mind? Because everybody else changed their mind? There's a lot of reasons. We are very influential. We can be very easily influenced, our brains. Okay. Now in healthcare, very important, that's that second one. In healthcare, there is local solutions needed. The problems that you have put down over here as Indian problems are problems I do not see in Germany. We don't have any rural problems. We don't have any emergency issues. There's emergency cars. We are a much smaller country too, so it's much easier to get to. We don't usually typically have a diabetes problem. We do have diabetes-related problems, but we also have, it's pretty well under control. We have enough specialized doctors. So these are the problems where you as Indians have to try to fix your own problems. And that's actually, the principal yesterday was asking about reverse innovation. I don't think anybody knows what reverse innovation is. Reverse innovation is where you actually try to provide solutions in a country that is typically not known to provide innovation. So don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to discredit you down, but typically medical innovation comes from Europe or the US. It's not coming from India, right? So why don't you create solutions for your own country, which are good for your country, and then you do an export of your innovation. That's what we call reverse innovation. So we don't actually don't wait for the Europeans to create something. Create it yourself for your own problems. And then, when you have actually, proven that it works, export it back. I'm sure that actually whatever you come up with here, which will be easy to use, effective, maybe portable, that is a great device for the Europeans as well. We just don't want it at the moment because it's not fitting into our business plans. That's what we call reverse innovation. So we actually do innovation in Africa, in Asia, in India, South America, and this innovation is then being brought back to Europe. Actually, Siemens, Philips, GE, they're doing this. That's why they're here. They're coming. You have completely different products here than we have in Europe. Okay, what is innovation? We jumped over this one here, but I thought it was very important. That's why I put it at least in the review. Innovation is never a single event. It's a long process of discovery, engineering, and transformation. Sitting in your office is not providing you with enough information to be innovative. You need to go out and check for yourself. And innovation is not about ideas, it's about solving problems. So if your idea, remember that when I said it was a painkiller for a burning problem? If your idea is a painkiller but you have not found a burning problem yet, it's not good enough. Okay, this is my summary of this one in the back. But we use this one in the back anyway. I encourage you later on to walk around, maybe get some inspirations. But what I thought was I thought that I found this several times. I think I put all the ones up that I found at least twice. Imaging is too expensive. So this is an imaging class, so we want to talk about imaging. But why do we use imaging? What is the purpose of imaging? What was it?
You can visualize what's going on inside.
So, but the imaging itself doesn't solve any problems.
That it gives the doctor an idea of what's going on.
You need to have a proper diagnosis to do a proper therapy. Actually, the therapy is the important thing. So it's just a tool to do therapy. So you can actually think differently. What if we would be able to do a therapy differently and we don't need imaging anymore? Could be another thinking process. And what do we need actually on imaging? You need special imaging for knees, then for the head. Maybe there's other ways to do it. Maybe you can find it with a gene marker. I mean, genetic information is not diagnosis. Do you use imaging? Do you see what I'm getting to? Try to find the real problem that you try to solve. And the problem is you want to have proper therapy. And for that, you need proper diagnosis. And one way to get diagnosis is by imaging, but there's other ways as well. Insufficient number of qualified doctors. The ratio of patient-doctor is too low. I said that I was a little surprised about that because I thought that you are the stars on the medical education sky. You're really doing a lot, but I guess people don't stay here. Is that the reason? Is that an issue? Okay, emergency availability in rural areas. Actually, that would mean inavailability in rural areas. It's not available, right? But there is not only emergency services not available, there's a lot of other things not available from what I understand, right? Cancer diagnosis is insufficient. Okay, that goes with imaging again and goes with therapy. What if you would find out that you have a gene defect on G97H, and that indicates that you may have a higher chance of getting prostate cancer as a man? It's already a hard diagnosis, right? Of course, you want to verify that later on. Or you actually can check with a marker that you have cancer. There's a lot of marker, prostate as well, there's a marker. You can actually check on whether you have a high level of a certain parameter, and that indicates you actually have cancer. And then you actually swallow a pill, and cancer is gone. Dream? Yeah, for the time being, but does anybody believe we won't have that in 50 years? Anybody not believing? So it means everybody else believes it? I believe that too. I'm not sure what we need diagnostic imaging for then in 50 years. I'm a diagnostic imaging guy myself, so I don't like it to disappear, but okay, medical waste, rehabilitation we talked, medical waste, resistance towards e-health, that one I think is very interesting. Because if we on the other side on the solutions look for e-health applications and then we have a resistance, then that's a little bit problematic, right? But I think, in all honesty, I think it will open up and your generation will help. Because you're an e-health generation. Neonatal imaging is missing. That's another imaging point. Early detection prevention, easy visualization, Eustachian tube. That was, again, was kind of funny and interesting. Maybe, does anybody wants to admit that he wrote this down with the Eustachian tube? So why, why do we need this? Yep. Okay, what is the problem you can have if you have a problem with Eustachian tube?
Some kind of tumor or some collection there.
How often does that happen?
I have to research and find out.
Okay, that's a good one. That's what I wanted to hear. So you are having a painkiller, but not a burning problem yet. Okay. Eye diagnosis, I would agree. Why? I mean, how many of you have gone to an eye doctor, except for the ones who have glasses on, right? You have to go every once in a while. So you have been, you said? Yeah. Why?
Oh, I actually have glasses.
Okay, but so you just went this. Okay, but at the end of the day, going to an eye doctor is not always very pleasant. I think, you know, they put something really sticky on you, and then he put some stuff in it, and people don't like it. That's why people don't go. So if you think about trying to come up with solutions, try to understand the problem. The problem is you don't really like going there. So if you find a way to make it actually more easy for people to go, maybe people would go. I would see it as a so that's problem-oriented solution rather than having, yes, I have another way of actually measuring the arteries behind your pupil, which is an indication of a gray star coming up or something like that. Yes, that's clear. That we can do. But if people still don't go to the doctor, it's not going to help anybody. Okay, diabetes. Diabetes, I think, is a big problem. What is the main reason for diabetes? Food. So you can treat diabetes, or you can treat people, or you can tell people how to eat healthy. It's kind of like the same thing, right? Not quite, but almost. Okay. Solutions: e-health app, food and exercise apps, reduce size and complexity of devices, I would assume, right? Diabetes sensors, thermal imaging. Thermal imaging is interesting. Thermal imaging has been around for many, many, many decades. I'm actually we have a team working on a breast imaging device on thermal imaging. We are not entirely sure if we will do anything, but the idea is clever because it's very non-invasive. Okay, you want better facilities and more affordable ones, involve more advanced technologies. I don't know what I wanted to do with this last one. Sorry for that, no idea. To look it up, something was missing. Okay, maybe you want to look for more, and I think there's more coming up. So we're still in the search modus, right, today? And tomorrow we stop searching. Tomorrow we'll get a little more into it. Okay, actually, let's go back to this one now. Oh, wrong direction. Sorry, wrong direction. I've seen too many. Have anybody seen my doodle? No, it was too fast. Good. Okay, so why don't I ask you right now to do this? So basically discuss, and really do it quick, within 5 minutes, discuss your little summaries, and maybe agree on a summary of your summaries. So I have actually given you some pens. So everybody has a pen. And why don't we just, you can change the rule. Whoever is the decider can change the rules to whatever they want. But I would say that maybe you start with everybody has 5 dots they can do. And basically you put your dots on what you think are the highlights and the most important ones. And if you believe that one highlight deserves 5 points, you put 5 points on it, right? And you I would just suggest you give your sheets around and do that quick, and then everybody knows who the summary guy is and decider is. I would ask you to later on collect that and put it together as day 1 summary, okay? 5 minutes, start now. Yeah, just leave them up there in the front. So.
Got 100 of them. So maybe 2 each, 100 of them.
Good, very good. Okay. Then I would just want to.
Yeah, we can use this one.
Hä? Ja, du musst nachher noch. Stop for the time being and continue later on. We'll have I just talked to Abhishek, we have a coffee break at 11:30. And we probably do the coffee tea in here. So we have some time to continue this. And at 12:45 is lunch break. What is it, an hour? Okay. So, here we go. So, quick one. I'm throwing this up, and while I have mentioned several of these things before, I think it's nice to have just a little visual on this one. So, innovation the combination was invention times commercialization, but there's a lot of things which are part of this innovation. And one of them is the user desirability. That's checking the market, having the burning problem identified. It's business viability. Are people interested enough to actually spend money on it? So I'm not always picking on you because that's unfair. I'm picking on you right now. So what do you have? You have an iPhone or an Android? Oh. All right, people have Androids here. So you go and buy apps every once in a while, right? So if there's an app which is 99 cents, one is free, and one costs $3.49, which one are you going to take? Free. Everybody will take the free ones. They have some advertisement on it, and you will find out at some point in time it's actually a shitty program. What are you doing next? You take the one for 99 cents. And then maybe you find out it's shitty, and then you take the one for $3.49, or maybe you like it. But that's how we work. We always work the same way. I know that most of you cannot remember the times, maybe you guys can, yeah, when we had to buy Microsoft Word and Excel, and it was $200 for the program. Nobody would spend $200 in this room for a program. So what you have to do is you have to actually understand that there is always a trade-off between how much you're willing to pay and the quality. But if you communicate or if you understand the user desirability and communicate this well, people are willing to pay $3.49 instead of 99 cents. Of course, it needs to be technological feasible, so there needs to be a technological development that makes sense and that actually does something. And you have to show that you are reliable as an innovator. If you have actually done 2 programs, 2 apps, and these 2 apps have gotten a rating of 1.0 out of 5, will you buy from this guy? No. So, very important. And people look at ratings. Or who does not look at ratings? Do you rate restaurants here too? Do you go to a restaurant that has a 1.5 rating? I don't either. It has to be 4+, right? So, which I think is actually pretty good because people are now looking at what the peers are saying about things. You will still find out, and I think that may have happened to you as well, when you look at, when you go to, who has gone to a movie? Bollywood movie? No? You don't go to theaters anymore? You've watched one? Everyone does. So whenever your girlfriend says this is a great movie you need to see, have you actually found out she's completely nuts? This is a real bad movie. Happens to me all the time. People say, this is a must, you need to see it. And then you find out it's really stupid and it's dumb. And you find out actually tastes do differ. So it's not always. Anyway, if these points match, then you have a real innovation. And what they teach you at university typically is actually technical feasibility is the most important thing. It's not. And that's why this class, even though it's taught by a technological professor, is not about technology, it's about all the other stuff. So, Mr. Edison, well known to most of you at least, I hope, at some point in time said that, and it's still valid. He said that in the end 1800s. It's not coming up with the good ideas, but in making them work technically and commercially. Now, you cannot sell anything that doesn't work, right? So it has to work. But if it works, then you have to find ways to actually attract your attention and your ability and willingness to actually continue with the purchasing. I'm waiting. You're not ready for the dancing yet? We're already there for like 45 minutes. I think it's time to shake down. You too, Daniel. Whenever there's something like this, you have to stand up and then shake a little bit. It's kind of like stretch, right? And look forward and think what that could be. Feet. Uh-huh. Oh, hand. But so is it hand or feet now? There's all 5 out there. So we're not sure yet, right? Hand or feet, right? So come on, give me a couple more ideas. Donnie, what is it? Hands. Yeah, but hands is not helping yet. How many of you are swimmers? How many of you have ever have ever jumped from a board? This is how it looks, right? From underneath, it's basically the diver on the board from underneath. Oh, pretty obvious, right? So anyway, so now we have actually shaked out. We have stretched our mind a little bit. Please sit down again. And again, if you want to stand up you can stand up. I don't mind. It's all good. So we want to use today to gather more ideas. So what we have here, and maybe we give this around. Maybe we give this around. Give everybody 2 maybe. These are some of the ideas sheets. Please do not put things on if you're not sure yet. But maybe on the back you can mark some ideas. So we're starting this off right now with a little game. And the goal of the game is to actually gather more ideas. Maybe combine them later on with what you have up there. Then we'll have a lecture on exponential medicine. Maybe you come up with more ideas. Sometimes it makes what we said yesterday, this click, right, in your brain. Oh, that's cool. I want to do this. I think that's a good idea. So these are the sheets. It's 2 for everybody. Would be happy if they have been filled out. 2 each. So one of the ways to actually get you guys into a modus operandi of innovation is by playing games. Now, how many of you are still living at home? Oh, everybody. Danny, hands up. You're still living at home too. Okay, so let me grab somebody here. So you were living at home? So what is your relation to your parents? Good? Are you playing at home? Are you playful? Do your parents every once in a while tell you, grow up, stop playing? Yeah? So playing is considered something for children. In all honesty, playing is the most important thing for innovation. Please do never ever let your parents or anybody else tell you that playing is not a good thing. Playing is one of the most important things in life. Because playing, what do you do when you play? You distract yourself and you very often turn your head off. You're kind of like deeply into something. And playing is incredibly important, but it usually does not work when people tell you, play now. Then you don't want to play. You want to play whenever you want to play, right? And what I typically use this play for is, first of all, to get some insights, and secondly, to actually loosen you up a little bit. Yeah, get you into a modus. And now what I have you here in a room, and you're kind of like forced to do what I tell you. But please use any of these things that I said. You can do them anytime. You can grab people and says, come on, help me a little bit. Help me with my thesis. Now, if you have a thesis, where's our thesis lady? Right there. So tell me, just give me 2 words on your thesis, on the topic. 2.
Non-invasive.
2 already, yeah? Go, 1 more. Non-invasive with a dash is only 1 word. So non-invasive. Okay, so who would you actually take on in a group if you want to play a game and you want to get insights? You want to take experts or non-experts?
Non-experts.
Very good. You take non-experts. Because non-experts actually have very naive from the outside, and they ask questions that nobody else would ask. So please, if you ever get to the point you want to find something out, I'm not saying you should have complete, always non-expert in there, but have a good mix of people in there. And that's why I also asked to have these groups set up, so they're a little bit mixed, because you need to have different inputs. Homogeneous input is not good. When everybody says the same thing, then okay, that's all we're going to do, right? So there's different types of games. Normally, they're always involved with drawing things. Because drawing is a very common expression of your ideas. And that usually, I mean, you have heard that, right? A drawing or a figure tells more than 1,000 words. It is true. It tells more than 1,000 words. And how many of you can draw? How many of you are creative? Everybody can draw, and everybody is creative. Please do not mind drawing qualities. It's extremely unimportant on whether a person looks like a perfect person or just is this, yeah? Completely irrelevant. You want to create innovation, it doesn't matter how pretty it is. It's only important what the content of it is. So if people of you think you can draw, forget it. Everybody can draw and everybody should draw. Okay. So what we normally do is we play these couple of games. One is called Draw a Blobum, or another one is called Mission Impossible, which is set out and just ask people to, for example, how do we build a house in a day? I'm not sure that's actually completely impossible because I think people do that. How do we create a mobile device without a battery? Whatever, put some solar panels on there and something. We'll probably find something as well, right? What would the browser be without an internet connection? No idea, because I think that always works together. But some impossible things. And you will see that in a short period of time, you will actually be able to come up with a solution. That solution may not be, remember the previous one, technically feasible. But you have a solution. Please also, when I ask you later on things to do not do things that you think are completely realistic, but think about things you would like to see. That's a very important distinction. Because you can imagine what healthcare would look like or certain things would look like in 5 or 10 or 15 years. The question is, do you want them to look like that? If you deal with future, please always put down things that you want to see rather than things that you expect to see. Because an expectation is not necessarily always positive. So I would always plan a future based on what I want the future to be, rather than what the future could be. Okay, and pain gains, that's something we will play later on, because that will be a homework assignment of you where you analyze basically what are the problems of people, like an empathy game. So, I have actually thought we'd do 2 groups within one group. First group, second group, right? Something, or divide it up however you want. Same thing here. And Daniel, you will join one of these groups up there. And what I want you to do is I want you to draw within, how many times did I give you? 15 minutes. You use a big piece of paper, and you draw, one group draws the surgery room 2029. 10 years from now. What will the surgery room 2029 look like? And please always think a little bit, and actually when I say think it, I have to go back right away because I don't want you to think too much. But nevertheless, think about the social impact. What will happen to the nurse, what will happen to the doctor, what will happen to the patient. Have a little bit of an idea. And draw what it would look like. Right? Put some text down there, put some drawings down there, and I would advise you that you don't discuss too much in your group, but that you start. There's this other big saying that I think is very important. If you don't get started, you will never end up going somewhere. So you need to get started. And then you should not necessarily have a leader, but everybody should contribute. And while you discuss it and contribute, you'll do new things and you will talk. But if you actually first sit there and then, so what do we think it's going to be? You'll never start. You'll discuss too many things. So one group does the surgery room 2029, and the other group what will cancer imaging and therapy? And that's, you can pick whatever you want. Pick lung, breast, or prostate, whatever you want, right? And what will that look like in 2029? So you, at the end of the day, within 15 minutes, we'll have 2 drawings here. And maybe you want to put some highlights there, because I want to make some pictures later on, and maybe we hang them up as well. Okay? So, why don't we get started? Get each a piece of paper. I think there are some papers already right here. Yeah. So there's 1 and 2. So Danny, why don't you go there to that group here? So by the way, the 50 minutes start right now. Time is over. This is a starting game. So can I just get 2 minutes of you or 1 minute of your time? Can you please stop drawing? Here we go. So, first of all, first question, most important question to you, did you have fun doing this? Yes. It's very exciting to see, and the second question actually, do you think that 15 minutes were too short? It was actually 20 minutes that I gave you. You didn't even realize it. Time passes very quickly when you do that. Now, why do you think I limited to 15 or 20 minutes? Because if I don't limit it, you will never stop. So you need to stop. It's a starting game. So what I want you to do now, just for the next 3 to 4 minutes, sit back down in your group with your 4 maybe, and then put down 2 sticky notes and write down in bullet points the highlights. And maybe the things that you believe you have learned, maybe also the innovation that you've learned. When you're done, please hang it up on your wall. So I know you're finished, okay? So max 5 minutes, please. You have enough time. This is working now? Yeah. You have enough time to later on discuss it. It is something made for you, but I wanted to hang it up anyway, so the other people are, have a chance to actually look at what you did. So just put it up pretty quick, and then we'll continue for a little bit, and then we have. Okay, while you put it up, let me show you some pictures. I don't really necessarily want to know what you did right now. I'll go through, and I would advise everybody to just walk around and see what they do. Maybe you take the lunch break later on to exchange ideas. But what's very interesting, I did this about 250 times already. I have no kidding, I have probably 1,000 pictures of what a surgery room should look like, for example. And when you see that, you probably will see very similarities to what you did. There's typically always a robot in there. Who drew a surgery room without a robot? Nobody. There's typically an imaging system in there. Did anybody draw a surgery room without an imaging system? There's typically very few people in there. True? This is typical. And why is that? Because people, we are all thinking linear. We're all knowing that's what it was looking 5 years ago. That's what it looks right now. And that's what it probably will look like 10 years ago. What we are not capable of is thinking exponential. For example, I had somebody here, I had something seen with what hospital? This is a cool one. Why do we need a surgery room in 2020 now? We don't get sick anymore. That could be a good one. This is more exponential thinking. It's probably not 2029, maybe 2049, but whatever. But that could be a vision, right? But we are very linear in our thinking process. I'm not saying that it's bad, but I'm just saying that's very typical. So whenever we do this exercise, we pretty much get the same results. Now, interesting enough, there's more of those. So I've just shown some of them. So and maybe you see some of the stuff yourself on here. But what's very exciting is that companies do that too. So I talked to you, right? Your mother says you shouldn't play too much. Playing is not good. Companies play all the time. And companies play, this is the company called Intuitive Surgical. Maybe some of you know that's the one who do the Da Vinci robot. Intuitive Surgical makes a planning game of what will surgery room look in 20, 30, 40 years look like. Why are they doing this? Just because they have spare time and want to play around? No, they want to see on whether their system fits into the surgery room. And they, of course, will plan a surgery room that includes their system. Of course, it's their company, right? It would be stupid to do a surgery room without your own robot. So if you look at this one, for example, there's a person walking in, scanned, whoosh, automatic, just walks in, scanned. And then there's a display, and there's actually a human person sitting. Why? I don't know. We don't need this human person anymore, right? And then he walks right through, gets onto a dentist's chair, and then been done surgery on automatically, everything. This is the vision of Intuitive Surgical. Now, in all honesty, who believes that this vision cannot be done already or in the next 20 years? Everybody here, right? This is not so far off. This is not completely out of the ordinary. And if you think further, there's a lot of these things in your life where you see, oh, yeah, it works already, or could work. I give you one quick example, just for an innovation example. So you're sick. What do? Go to the doctor, okay? What happens? First of all, do you like going to the doctor? No? Nobody likes to go to the doctor. And why are you not liking going to the doctor? You have to wait. What are all the other people next to you? They're sick. I don't want to sit next to sick people. So sick people is not something good. So you don't want to sit next to sick people, right? Then eventually the doctor says, come on in, but stay away, you're sick, right? And then cough a little bit. Yes, you have a cold. Here's the prescription. What do then? You go with this prescription. You're half dead, right? You're very sick. You walk with your prescription to the pharmacy. You get the medication. You walk back home, take the medication, put yourself into bed. Now it's all good. Now why couldn't you have, this is something very fancy nobody has. It's an iPhone. Nobody has this here, right? No, everybody has one, right? This has about 20 sensors included, or 30, I don't even know. So why could you not do, and maybe measure your heart, and maybe measure the temperature, create a file, send this file to the doctor, maybe have a quick chat, oh, I'm really feeling sick. The AI indicates, yes, this coughing is definitely an indication of normal cough. It's not pneumonia. You can hear that, right? And the temperature is 38.5, clear indication of a, you know what? I'll send you a prescription. and the prescription doesn't go to you, it goes directly to the pharmacy, and half an hour later somebody rings the bell and brings that to you. Is this not possible? It's already possible, theoretically. Technologically, it's possible. Why is nobody working on it? You have to ask yourself the question, why nobody works on this? Because this is something I would like to have. And if I would like to have something, that's what I'm saying, plan for the future you want to have, then I should work on it. And this is something which is completely realistic. We have all the devices already. Just have to plug them back together. And then we have to figure out who pays for it. That's a different story. But technologically, that's possible. And that's what we all want. Anybody here who does not want that? Weird that nobody works on it. A lot of cool ideas you can develop by looking at problem areas. One more time, problem is the key, not the solution. The solution is always based on the problem. All right, anyway, so this is what this company does. I think I have another one. No, I have no more. So we clap our hands first. We're cool, right? Get up. You can also get up doing this, right? Yeah. So before we go to have a little tea, I want to remind you one more time. You may have gotten some ideas. I may have given you some ideas as well. These are the things you could use. Not right now, maybe, but have them in the back of your mind. Okay, so everybody pick out a sheet, an empty sheet. And what you do now is I'm going to read you a question, and you put down A, B, C, or D. I don't know if it's 4. I don't remember anymore. And we do this really quickly. Okay? So we'll start off. And you can't read that. That's why it's also good, because I have to read it now. Actually, I'm going to have it here on my laptop. So let me just pull it. So so what you do now is, this is question number 1, right? In all low-income countries across the world today, how many girls finish primary school? A, 20%, B, 40%, C, 60%. If you believe 20%, you put down 1A. Got it? 1A, 1B, 1C. Question 2, where does the majority of the world population live? A, low income, B, middle income, C, high income. Number 3, in the last 20 years, Daniel, do that too, please. Give him a piece of paper. So we have to wait for my son now. So Daniel starts with 3. So in the last 20 years, the proportion of the world population living in extreme poverty has almost doubled, B, remained more or less the same, C, almost halved. Question 4, what is the life expectancy of the world today? 50, 60, or 70 years? Number 5, there are 2 billion children in the world today, aged 0 to 15 years old. How many children will there be in the year 2100, according to the United Nations? 4, 3, or 2 billion? Number 6, the UN predicts that by 2100, the world population will have increased by another 4 billion people. What is the main reason? There will be more children below 15, there will be more adults between 15 and 74, there will be more very old people, 75 and older. Number 7, how did the number of deaths per year from natural disasters change over the last 100 years? More than doubled, remained about the same, decreased to less than half. Question 8. There are roughly 7 billion people in the world today. Now look at this map up there. Okay. Which map shows best where they live? So 7 billion, meaning 1 billion in the Americas, 1 billion in Africa, 4 billion in Asia, 1 billion in Europe, or the other setups? A, B, or C? I give you a couple more seconds on this one. So A would be 1 billion Americas, 1 billion Africa, 1 billion Europe, 4 billion Asia. B is 1 billion Americas, 2 billion Africa, 1 billion Europe, 3 billion Asia. C is 2 billion Americas, 1 billion Europe, 1 billion Africa, 3 billion Asia. I think For you, it's actually not that difficult because 1.2 billion in China and 1.5 1.5 in China, 1.2 in India already is more than 3, right? Or almost 3. So this is maybe a question you will get right. Oops. So number 8, how many of the world's 1-year-old children today have been vaccinated against some disease? 20, 50, or 80%? Number 10, worldwide, 30-year-old men have spent 10 years in school on average. How many years have women of the same age spent in school? 9, 6, or 3 years? Number 11, in 1996, tigers, giant pandas, and black rhinos were all listed as endangered. How many of these 3 species are more critically endangered today? 2 of them, 1 of them, none of them? Number 12, how many people in the world have some access to electricity? 20%, 50%, or 80%? And last question, global climate experts believe that over the next 100 years, the average temperature will get warmer, remain the same, get colder. I think that's probably the easiest question, right? So, everybody has this? Can we put it down on the normal size? This comes from a book called Factfulness. And you can actually download that. From what I know, you can download that for free. Bill Gates has made that available, that book, through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And it's a very interesting book. And but before we go on there, here's the results. So please check how many you have right. Don't cheat. Everybody has the results? How many of you have more than half right? How many of you have more than a third right? I'm already not sure that you didn't cheat on this one. How many would have an ape gotten right? An ape, a monkey. If there would be monkeys sitting here, how many would have they gotten right? 33%, just statistically, right? 1 out of 3, and you have one choice you make just by mere luck, you will 33%. So everybody below 33%, why? An ape would have been better, a monkey would have been better than you. Why? Because this is a question about, do we live in a good world or not? We live in a much better world than anybody thinks we live in. And that's maybe, and that's, we have a fairly rich group here, but interesting enough, the richer the group is, the worse it gets. If you do this in Europe or America, 15 to 20% will be right. 15 to 20%. And in all honesty, I would have also not gotten all of it right. Maybe about a third. Maybe about the same than a monkey. But it's very amazing. I just want to give you, it has nothing to really do with this class to a certain extent, but when we talk about developed world or developing world, this is really getting much wrong. We are doing significantly better. So I have some examples for you. Fact question, that's pretty cool. In the last 20 years, the proportion of the world population living in extreme poverty has, what was the correct answer? Almost halved. So it has gotten significantly less. And look at these countries. The further you go down, US, 5% have only gotten it right. 5%. So in the US, where you have richness, right? You think that the rest of the world is poor. So another question. How many of the world's 1-year-old children today have been vaccinated against some disease? Weirdly enough, living in the developed world, we believe that no kids are getting vaccinated. The answer is almost 80% get vaccinated. The world is not as bad as we all believe it is. What's the world's life expectancy? 70. You ask most of the Westerners, they think that, the poor Africans, they only live like 40 or 50. That's what it is. Now look what happened. Life expectancy has gone dramatically up. What is the difference between life expectancy in India and in Germany? Does anybody know? I think I have a chart on this anyway. Anybody have an idea? I think it's about 6 or 7 years. It's not that much. What is the life expectancy between somebody in India who has money and a German? 0. There's no difference. Which also means that if you don't have money, you still live shorter life. What is the life expectancy of the world today? I think that's the question, right? Actually, the US got it right, but I think the Germans were really bad. And what's really cool about this one is, look at the bottom ones. If you come from a top university, you seem to be rating worse, not better. Because you're in such an elite area that you believe everything around you is actually bad. Okay, poverty. We don't have extreme poverty anymore. There's few areas in the world, maybe few areas in India. I have told my son, please don't take that too personal either. I have been in India in the end 1990s, and I thought, I don't have to ever come back here. It's not a place for me. Now coming back, India has changed dramatically in the last 20 years from what I have seen. I mean, it's a lot more abundance around here, a lot more industry, a lot more wealth. It has changed dramatically. And that's, I think we talked about this shortly yesterday, about the different income levels. Typically, only if you're in income level 4, which everybody in this room is, by the way, you are thinking about healthcare. And all the other ones before, you have to think about how to survive first. This is a distribution of how these people, actually this is the definition of these different income, of these different levels of income. You know, again, it's not necessarily something that is directly important to this class, but I think it's important to the mindset of you. And it's important to understand that you are actually living in a good country. You're living, but nevertheless, you can do things to improve wherever areas are that are not doing as well, as your problem areas and solution areas showed. So, is this the chart? This was a chart done to basically distinguish between developing world and developed world. And you know what we used to do? We used to say that actually the number of children born to a family is an indication almost of whether you're developing or developed. Why? Because many children were ensuring that 1 or 2 were surviving at the end of the day. So in essence, it was not childbirth, it was child survival that was a key issue. So is this today's world? This is 1965. And you know what has happened to these countries? What do you think these 2 big blobs are there? It's China and India. 1965. Where are we now? There. There is pretty much no country in the world left anymore where you have a high number of family, children, because the children's survival rate has gone dramatically up. And what also went up is the age that you live, the survival rate of yourself. So we are not really using this world developing nations anymore. I think it's completely wrong. But nevertheless, every country that you deal with has come from a different background, and with that has different starting points with respect to healthcare. Now we're going back to healthcare. You basically came from a place where even in 1965, when you had money in India, you had a long life because you could afford all the healthcare. Now the increase in life expectancy is mainly due to the fact that a lot more people have access to healthcare, and you have gotten richer. You're on a different level now. Okay, I think I'm not going to use this one. I'm not going to use this. I'll give you all this. It's just showing here basically everything has basically gone down. So the world is getting a significantly better place. Okay? So, have anybody thought of you that we are so much better off than 10 or 15 years ago? Probably most of you. What do you think is going to happen in the next 15, 20 years? where are we going to put our resources? Where are you going to put your resources, your efforts? There's a lot of problem areas, which, as you indicated, but put your efforts there and make the world even better, okay? I think we'll make a break. Abhishek, where are you? Oh, right there. Is that the right time to make a break? Yeah, so we make a little break. You have your coffee and tea. And maybe if you feel like, go around a little bit, look at the other people's stuff. Maybe I'll look at it too and get some input from you. And other than that, we'll try to limit it to 5-10 minutes and then continue till lunch. Right, just get up. I don't have one of these droodles now, but shake your body anyway. And then we'll continue in 5-10 minutes.